Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Great to be here. Good to see all of you, and it's great to have a chance to do a follow-up to Dr. Takacha's reminder of our mission and our vision last night. You remember he said what our vision was? I'm not going to ask you to say it all at once, okay? There's no telling what will happen or not. The vision of GCI is new churches and all kinds of churches for all kinds of people in all kinds of places. And you saw him go through some slides last night to show you how the Holy Spirit has been moving in our midst all along to start new churches that are reaching new people in all kinds of cultures and places and making disciples. And the same thing is happening in the United States, and it's my privilege to be able to share with you some of the stories, give you some updates on what's going on in the United States to start new churches, to reach new people in all kinds of places. Several years back, as a lot of you are aware, we came to realize that as we were trying to discern how Jesus wanted us to participate with him to reach people with the beautiful gospel that he's shown us and revealed to us and drawn us into it, that he had in mind that we do this not only through our established churches and through their ministries and through all of us really individually, but that he had in mind for us to do so through starting some new churches. It became apparent to us because it started to happen spontaneously. We had some wonderful folks like the Roberts who started the church in San Francisco some years back. There was Martin Manuel, who started a couple churches in North Carolina, the most recent one, King of Kings, in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. There was the Ground Zero, who I'm going to talk a little bit about here in a moment, one of our more recent plants, but also 24/7, a church that was planted probably 10 or 12 years ago now. But as we've been learning to participate in Jesus' ministry, we realized we did have a place and we did have a need for us to begin to develop some of the support systems and some of the processes to be able to identify people that Jesus was calling to start churches with, new churches, and develop some of the processes to be able to identify them, to train them, to equip them, to release them for those ministries, and to support them all that we could. Over the years, we've, like I said, had some adventurous people who have been doing this and continue to do so. And I want to start by talking about the group that I just mentioned to you, Ground Zero in Englewood, Colorado. This is some cool stuff going on, and I know that many of you have heard about Ground Zero. You know what's been going on there. This is a church. The bottom left picture is a picture of a group of young people who grew up in our fellowship. They were nurtured and mentored and equipped and prepared for ministry with Jesus through our camp system. And they began about 3 years ago to realize that Jesus wanted them to start a new church with the group that they had had. They were discipling each other, and so over a period of time of working with them, coming alongside them, helping them to discern the particular focus group and community where they felt that Jesus wanted them to be in ministry within, they began to become more formalized and come together. And a year ago, they were chartered as a new church. They're called Ground Zero. And a year ago, Easter, Aaron was ordained as a church pastor. Aaron and his wife Sasha are in the top left picture, and just recently, he's been pastoring that church, and just recently, Anthony Mullins in the top right there, who's working with our Generations Ministries, he has moved there, and he's now co-pastoring with Aaron. Picture there of one of the scenes of their worship service. So they're planted now. They've just relocated from one suburb of Denver to Englewood. They're there now, and they're kind of regrouping and reaching out into that community there. The thing that's exciting about this, I mean, it's all exciting, but you know, when you stop and you think that group of people that you see in that group shot, those leaders that started this new church were all under 30. And in fact, they were I think they started, at the time, 25 to 27 was the age range, okay? So, you know, we can't say young people can't do some amazing things in ministry with Jesus, including start new churches. They can, okay? And it's our hope and our prayer that there are more out there like them that we can come alongside and help to do what these folks are doing in Colorado. Our latest new church is what we call a satellite church, and it's in the LA area, the Lincoln Heights area of Los Angeles. It's called a satellite church, and rather than listen to me talk about it, Heber, come on up here. Heber Tikas is the pastor of the congregation that planted this new church, and I'm just going to, Heber, if you want to grab the mic there, then I'll let him tell you some of the story about this new church that has just been started since October. Was it when you had your first service?
That's correct. Before we go there, good morning, all.
Yeah.
Got to teach you some manners sometimes, you know.
Yeah, get me started.
Yeah, in
October.
October.
I get you started and we're in real trouble. But tell them about, first of all, tell them what the difference is between a satellite church and a, quote, regular church.
Well, a satellite church, it is a new church plant, and it functions in the same way as a new church plant. I guess the major differences, the first difference is that we have the mother church and the satellite becoming an expansion of the mother church. We have same senior pastor in both places, although there's a campus pastor, but you still have the same ministry, same DNA, same situations that are happening on the mother church happen on the satellite campus. But there is a different focus group, focus area at least, in the satellite campus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what were some of the key steps that you took, major steps that you took to prepare to do this and then actually make it happen? Just tell a little bit about that.
Sure. To plant a satellite church, you really have to take the same steps as you're taking for a brand new church plant. The first thing you start with is prayer, and a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
The second thing you
That's
do...
a good thing.
Yeah, I guess if there's no prayer, there's nothing. The second thing that you do, you have to start building a team. You have to start building a team that is passionate, to be able to do a church plant. Now, because of a satellite plant, you also have to create an environment in your congregation to be missional, because you're transferring the same DNA. So you create that environment, you pray, you start seeking out a team, you launch the vision to your satellite church, to your mother church, of what your vision is and what you're going to be doing. And then you start looking for a focus area. You start praying that God would lead you. Where is it that God is calling you to expand? And as you do that, you continue with the same steps as a church plant. Identifying the area, going out and praying for the area, creating a core team for your launch. Before you do your launch, you have to do preview services. We did 3 preview services, or practice services, before we had the launch day. So all those steps need to be taken before you go out and launch.
What was the time frame, say from and I know it can be kind of iffy about when things become real clear, but say when you think it became real clear this is what you needed to do, and the time when you actually had your first public worship service was about what kind of length of time?
Yeah, we're talking about a 2-year time frame. Mm. Yeah, I don't know, some of you may remember about 3 years ago, maybe we were at a conference, and Rod Koop was the speaker, and we were talking about church planting, and I made some comments, and he made a comment that I never forget. He's like, "You're pregnant." I'm like, "I'm a man. I'm not pregnant." But he said, "This guy is pregnant." Well, we're talking about church planting, and I had that desire, and I had that passion, and I know it was God's calling, and we just needed to share that vision amongst our brethren in our congregation. So, you know, as I went back from that conference, just taking further steps towards that goal. You know, we thought we can put a team together in a year we're out, and it just didn't happen that way. Lorenzo's my coach all along, and we were working, and we did it district-wide. One thing that I should add, what we did was not just my congregation, it was a district-wide situation in the Hispanic district. So I started looking for the team. So we figured in 1 year period we'll be up and running. And I did choose a team, and we did gather a team, but it didn't happen that way. Then I figured out that the main person that was going to lead the church was not the one. So that's when we kind of switched gears into a satellite campus, and I figured that I needed to be heavily involved with it, and it needed to be something from my congregation, an extension or so. So in essence, it took about 2.5 years pretty much to get going. Yeah. About 2 years to have services out in the community and stuff.
Yeah. Now I know nickels and noses aren't everything.
Okay.
But I know people are going to be interested to know when you had that first service, about how many people came to it?
On our first service, I believe we had about 113 in attendance. Okay. About 48 people from the mother church, because you have to create a core team. You have to create what we call critical mass. You know, people that will come and support. So I had already signaled out, you know, people from my congregation that I would want out there making a commitment for about 3 to 6 month period just to come along and support. So I had about 48 people from the mother church, and then there was just people from the community, friends and family of the team. We put together a team of 9 to be able to do this. Two of those families came from our sister church in Santa Fe Springs. Pastor Escalante, he facilitated, so we actually worked together now. He facilitated those leaders to come and do this. And then 3 other families came from my congregation, totally dedicated to this ministry, and 4 others were recruited totally outside of our denomination.
Yeah, great. Now, I know you probably have more questions for him, and I'd love to ask him, but I'll let you do that sometime during the breaks, later on during the conference, but thanks a lot. Appreciate you coming up here and sharing that story. Right. It's fantastic. One of the things I love and appreciate about Heber, and there are many, is that when he first came to our equipping and training session for church planters, he was kind of skeptical about this church planting stuff, and he vocalized that. But you can see he's been transformed. Yeah. So the next thing that I'm excited about talking about is another one of our new church plants in the making. This one is in the making. This is Dishon and Africa Mills up in Randolph, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston. Now, they grew up in GCI, and a number of years ago, they parted ways for a while. They had another journey, and that journey brought them back to us. They had been monitoring us over the years and staying in touch with a few people. They've been watching the website, and then the Trinitarian theology really captured them, and they fell in love with it. It just rang their bells, and so they got back in contact with some of us and said, hey, we not only would love to come back, but we feel called to ministry, and one thing led to the other. Long story short, they went through our assessment process to help clarify their calling to plant a church. They went through some training. We brought a coach alongside them now to help them do what they're doing, but they're in the early stages of planting a new church in Randolph in that community, and this is from scratch. This is with no other members, no other Christians, just from scratch in their neighborhood. And they meet now regularly every weekend. They have a small group study meeting. Once every couple months, they have a major activity to bring people from the community together just to begin to sink in roots, develop credibility in the community, develop relationships, as sharing the gospel as they go. And what I'm going to do is play a little video clip. I sat down with Dishon last November, just spent about a half hour, 45 minutes, just letting him talk about some of his experience. He talks about what it's like to be in a community and to begin to start with nobody with you, but to begin to take the steps that are necessary to begin to develop relationships, okay, and share the gospel, live and share the gospel in the community and make new disciples. I'll just share with you that it is an exceptional challenge. And I know you know this. I mean, as you are participating with Jesus to make new disciples wherever you are, you know this challenge. I just ask that you please keep these people in your prayers. Now, I want you to pray for Heber and his church and his leaders too. And I want you to pray for Richard Roberts and others that I mentioned and others to come. Planting a church is not something that happens overnight. And I know some of you probably have heard people talk or read books, you maybe gone to some conferences, and they tend to make it look like it's kind of easy. You know, you just go in, you set up, you walk around, you pray for some people, put out some flyers, you know, and then you have some really charismatic individual get up, and the first thing you know, you've got a worship service with 500 people, and within 3 years you've got a couple of thousand. That happens. Some people who've done that are now good friends of mine. That's real, that happens with about 1% at best of people who go out and start churches. It's a long, difficult journey for people who are called to this. You think it might click now? All right, we'll let him go ahead and have his say.
I think this past year we've just been learning so much about what it means to be a church planter, but even more so what it means just to be a son, child of God. I'll talk about church planting first. A lot of my best moments and favorite moments have come during a friendship feast where we have these community dinners where we invite people to come and just have a meal with us and talk and to share. Through those friendship feasts, we've been attracting such a wide variety of people from all kinds of different backgrounds, and just seeing all different kinds of people together and having a good time and eating food and enjoying each other's company has just been a beautiful thing to be a part of. One of the best emails I ever received was for a woman who she was on the fringes of some of our events but hasn't been a regular attendee to anything we've done. But she's seen what we've been trying to do in the community. And she went out of her way to write me an email one day, and she just said, thank you for what you're doing in our town. You and your wife are trying to make this town a better place, and I appreciate it. As a resident of Randolph, I appreciate it. And that really spoke volumes to me, just made me feel like, wow, praise you, Lord. Because that's what we're really trying to do. That's the whole thing we've been trying to do, is just to love on this community. And to have someone from this community recognize that and see that and reach out and write to us was very powerful. This piece right here, I think, is the part that often is not in books about church planting, about how the things that you originally envisioned and how you originally envisioned it's going to be collide with reality, and that's very difficult. When I came up with the timeline, I came up with a timeline based on other projects and other things that I've done both in ministry and in my professional life. But the reality of church planting is very, very different. When we talk about planting a church, it really is planting, where you have to first cultivate the ground for a good period of time, and you plant a seed, and if you sit there and watch it, you're going to be watching nothing happening for a while, or seemingly nothing happening. And then when you don't expect it, this little sliver of green starts to stick its head out of the ground. And that's really what my experience has been, you know. For the first year, we've just been cultivating the ground, and that's been the work that we needed to do. Work that I thought would only take a period of a couple months really took a full year, and we're still doing some cultivation now. That was a reality check. One of the biggest things I had to learn personally, and what was hard for me, is, you know, working with God, doing it with God, and not just doing it and hopefully God gets my back. But what I would ask of anyone who's watching this is to just do a gut check about what they're doing to personally advance the gospel message, to advance the work of God, to be on mission with God. And that could be you doing more to outreach to your neighbors, to get to know your neighbors, to try to be the best neighbor on the block. Every Christian should be the best neighbor on his or her block. the one everybody knows. We should be the one that are reaching out and connecting. But it could be thinking about, is there a church planter in our midst that we need to support? Is there a church planter somewhere else that we need to support? We need to be, as the body of Christ, we need to be planting more churches in America.
I hope you get a chance to meet them sometime. I know they're on the other part of the country, but you never know. And as I say, please keep them in your prayers. The next church planter that I'd like to introduce you to, I probably don't have to introduce her to a lot of you because she's been a part of our fellowship for a long time. That's Mary Batchelor. She's on the left in the photo, and Mary came to us about 3 years ago and said, I think God wants me to start a new church for deaf people. Now, there aren't many of those around. And if you do know Mary, and if you know her well enough, you know that Mary's first language, her heart language, is ASL, not English. In fact, her second language is Spanish. English is her third language. You would never know this. She is so articulate in all three. It's a remarkably gifted lady. And so again, she came to us, and we've been working together in helping her to, again, to discover and discern what God has for her to do and just how she's to do it. And so it's been processed. It's been 3 years now, but she is now at a point where she's ready not to launch a church, but a small group for deaf people. Joe mentioned this last night in his presentation. She's on Staten Island, and she's been going through a several-month process to procure a room to be able to meet, but she met with the people and finalized that this last Sunday, so she now has a place to meet. She now has an initial small group to begin to meet with and to begin to disciple, and her goal, of course, is to multiply that group, to continue to work and to make disciples, develop some leaders within the deaf community that she has inroads in, and then to plant this church. Her timeline, her goal is sometime before the end of this year. You heard Daishon talk about timelines, and you can develop a timeline, but develop it with humility and great flexibility. Everybody learns that. They're learning this. That's all okay. But Mary has not relented on this aspect of her journey with Jesus, and so I just ask that you keep her in your prayers as well. Also, during the last couple years, we've had a new development where we have had some of our district pastoral leaders who have been working on developing support networks with the congregations in their districts to support church planting. Now, we've been talking about the concept for a couple years, and in a couple years, a couple of the DPLs, district leaders, began to be very intentional about making some plans and doing some things to be able to draw in, to identify church planters and support them. Now, to tell this story, again, you're not going to have to listen to me the whole time. I've asked Glenn Wibber to come up and spend some time in talking about the experiences that he has. Come on up, Glenn. Grab the mic. Glenn is DPL here in Southern California, the Southwest U.S., but along with Eric Shaw, Burmy Dizon, and Heber Tikas, the other DPLs on the West Coast, they've kind of formed a four DPL network. We call them the Quad. It's just hard to remember those names all the time, but we call them the Quad. Sounds tough and cool too. But anyways, I'll let Glenn talk. Maybe Glenn, you can just talk about how this concept of a network got started and what you did to get it going, what you guys did to get it going.
Well, good morning from the Quad, everybody. Actually, we've been blessed that in Southern California, from the early days of church planting, they began training assessors and training coaches. So we had a little bit of background going on without even us being involved as DPLs in a sense, just some of the training that was happening. Some of you were trained as assessors way back. After the renewal church conferences that we had a few years ago, we were expected to go together as coaches in a triad and be coaching each other. And so Eric and Burmy and I were a coaching triad, and we began to process together and hold each other's feet to the fire about our congregations And then we started saying, well, what are we doing about this church planting thing? And we began to discuss it, and it began to kind of grow from there. At about that time, we said we need to bring Heber in because he's also here in the area. So there was the quad, and so we just more and more began to talk about it, percolate. I ended up being put on the church multiplication team, so that kind of intensified the desire to be involved in church planting. And so it just kind of grew from there. As the more we talked and coached each other, the more we realized we needed to be doing this. So it's been a good process.
So you've kind of been working together, the four of you. What were some of the steps you took to kind of garner some more support throughout your four districts and formalize this thing a little bit more?
Early on, we began to have trainings. We have so many trainings available in the denomination, missional training and coach training and assessment training. So many of those trainings we began to have. Thankfully, we've got the Glendora office, which makes it very easy to have training sessions. And so we can all go out there. And so we brought in Randy several times. We brought in Lorenzo a couple of times. I think Ted came once for us. So we've had different of the mission developers coming in, helping train people. And so I just want to see a show of hands. How many of you have been trained as assessors to assess church planters? Okay, we got a few of those. How many have been trained as coaches here in the Southern California district? Half of my congregation's been trained. Where'd their hands go, you know? We haven't necessarily developed it beyond that, but they've been through the training. So we had quite a few that have done that. Mm-hmm. And so with all those trainings, we've been inviting the pastors in primarily, but also elders. And then in some of them, we've invited anyone who wants to come. And so that helped. Each time we've moved it down the road a little bit further in our understanding of what we need to do and getting people ready.
Yeah, and you've got something really tangible that you're working with too. Right. That what I'm going to do is take a moment here and play a video clip, and then I'll let you talk some more about what you're doing tangibly. We have 10 DPLs across the country now. We have 28 districts, 28 district leaders. 10 of those leaders are now in some part of the process of developing a network for supporting church planters. Now, the long-term vision within Church Multiplication Ministries is we'd love to have districts across the country set up and established and ready to support church planters so that Dan and Joe and others can stand up and say, hey, church planters, wherever you are, whether you emerge where you are and want to plant a church where you are, if you'd like to move to some other part of the country, we've got some places where you can go and you can have some support to help you get going and to keep going. So 10 of the 28 DPLs are doing this. 5 of the 10 actually have a church planter that they're already working with. Larry Woolridge in the Northeast helping Dyshawn Mills that you just heard about. But the 4, the quad here in SoCal have been working for the better part of 2 years now to prepare to bring a church planting couple, Saudi and Angie Tabin, over from the Philippines. This couple here, they bring tears to my eyes every time I think about them because they felt drawn by Jesus to come here to the LA area and to plant a church for the Filipino community here. And they are relentless with this. And I'm going to let Glenn explain what some of that relentlessness has entailed, but first I'll play a video clip of them just kind of talking about themselves.
Where you go, I'll go. Where you stay, I'll stay. When you move, I'll move. I will follow.
Hi, I'm Sadi Tabin.
And I'm Angie.
We've been in the Lord's Ministries since 2005.
In 2008, the Lord called us to do church planting.
In 2009, we attended church planting seminar held in San Bernardino, California. By then, we began to explore several possible places where we could start this work that God gave us.
Last year, we met a Filipino couple in Eagle Rock. They introduced us to a Filipino community. We got to know many of them who need counseling, prayers, and fellowship. They have expressed the desire to see us soon in order to continue the small group we have started. Hopefully, this will grow into a church that will cater not only to Filipinos, but also to other ethnic groups.
Sadie and Angie were blessed to have had a successful construction business in Manila for the past 20 years. After receiving God's call for them to be in the ministry of church planting, now they are determined to reach out to Filipinos in the U.S. and to pioneer a church that will eventually cater also to other ethnic groups in the area.
We are here because of God's love, and we want to participate in what He's doing. We pray that you will join us in this work through your prayers and support.
Thank you and God bless you. We hope to see you soon.
About 18 months ago, we got to where we thought we could begin to really help support a church plant of some kind. We've assessed a couple different people here who actually assessed quite well, but they aren't really in their life place yet to maybe step up and actually plant a church. We're hoping that will come yet in the future. But the Tabans, as Randy said, are relentless. He's a successful businessman in the Philippines. It's going to be a big step down for them to come to America as church planters. And they came in 2009, I think they said. Then they came again, I believe, in 2010, each time on their own bat to get here and to check out the area, to come and build small groups and some of those things. And so as we assessed some other people and they said, well, our time's not right or whatever, we said, you know, these people really want to do it. We need to step up and help them get here. And so we've been in an active process of trying to, how do we get them here? Because there's this whole process of visas, you know, Homeland Security. It's like jumping through a million hoops in order to make this happen. And so we began that process. Last year at the conference here, we mentioned we hope to have them here by May. Now we're wondering if it'll be May of 2012 or 13 or 14, you know, because we're dealing with Homeland Security. And it took a while to get through the system. We had to get through our own system and get ourselves, our network sort of in place. We had to get a bank account set up, and that involved, you know, processing through Matt Morgan and everything, and you know, what's acceptable and what's not. And then we had to do the application process, which is like 20-page of application. And we finally got that, and that has to go through all of our departments. It has to go through legal department. Burmy Schnippert has to sign off on it. I mean, it's been a long process that we finally got into Homeland Security. I think about October we sent it in. I think late November they sent it back to us, and they said, we need to know Glenn's IQ. We need to know his church's average age. I mean, it was unbelievable the stuff they asked. They want a copy of my church lease. They want pictures of my building inside and out. They want all the advertising we've done in the last few years to prove we've been doing different activities, because there are fake churches out there. Many different religions are trying to bring bring people in under fake, false pretenses. And so they want to know you're a legitimate church who's established. And so we had to prove that we were established. The denomination had to prove they were established. They had to give a whole bunch of financial figures. And so we finally got that back in December of answering all those questions. So now we're sitting holding our breath, hoping they don't ask us for more information. And then hopefully they will approve it. So maybe by May of this year, we'll get them here, we hope. And so then they can move here, and the process will begin really on site. They had 3 groups going already in the 3 months they were here on vacation. We've all been here 40 years, folks. How many small groups have you started? You know, they've started 3 in 3 months, just hanging around Eagle Rock and talking to people and building up relationship. And so they'll come back and re-nurture those and hopefully get those going. I estimate will be probably a year before they actually plant the church because, you know, there's, as Heber said, there's that whole process of building up a core team, of doing things. But hopefully, because there's 4 districts and numerous congregations supporting them, we hope we can nurture that along a little faster. Right now we're in the fundraising process. We're encouraging congregations to participate as they can. And so if your congregation would like to help, you're certainly welcome to do so. It's an adjunct of my congregation, New Hope Christian Fellowship, and we have a district account that you can contribute to as your congregation. We need to raise a year's salary for them and expenses. So we're looking about $36,000 we estimate that we need to raise once they're here. We're hoping they can do some of that, maybe come out and speak in your congregations. You know, people in the community that they are meeting doctors, lawyers. I mean, they go out, I mean, they just know how to meet people. They're just amazing. You just walk around with them and they're like magnets. It's unbelievable. So, so we're hoping that with that they can help build their own funds as well.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn.
Okay.
Appreciate it. The quad. I feel confident that if every congregation represented by the quad were able to contribute even a minimum amount, that the $36,000 is chump change. It's chump change to Jesus, folks. You know that. So I just want to encourage you. You've been waiting for a church plant to support. You've been, looking for something to participate in this way. Talk to Glenn. I know he'll be happy to help you out and find a way to channel some of your missionary funds in that direction. Not to compete too much with anybody else, but, it's another ministry that you and your congregation may feel particularly moved to support. So I'll put it that way. So thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it very much. We have, just to kind of give you an idea of how things are developing in other ways within Church Multiplication Ministries. Over the last 2 or 3 years, every year, maybe sometimes twice a year, we will have people contact us who are not GCI, but they come into contact through the GCI website and their interest and their draw to Trinitarian theology, and or when they come in contact with the CMM website, which receives thousands of hits on a regular basis. But they come and they talk to us about the possibility of planting a church for GCI. I'm going down to Florida. I've got other workshops and whatever to do down there in April, but when I go down, I'm going to be meeting with a young man who has come to us from another denomination. In fact, his family is high up in the hierarchy of this denomination, but he experienced a grace awakening like ours and has connected with Trinitarian theology, and he wants to plant churches because he's an experienced church planter with this denomination, but he wants to do it with a certain demographic group in a certain area. And he's on fire. He wants to come and be a part of our journey. So we have, over the last couple of years, have had some of this kind of interest popping up and coming to us. We have a training program that we use. It's more of an orientation for people who want to learn about starting new churches. We've been doing it now for about 5 years. We've had several church planters from other denominations come to this training session, and they've gone back home and planted their church. A couple here in California, one up in Pennsylvania. So it's, what we're doing is something that is drawing an increasing amount of interest elsewhere, and we certainly hope and pray that continues as well. So I mentioned, again, please keep these folks in your prayers. I especially think of the Tabbins. They're kind of the quintessential church planting experience. Though Mary and Daishon and Ground Zero and Richard and others have had the same experience, that this is a frustrating process sometimes. I was praying this morning for the Tabbins that the spirit of peace would just fall upon them, because I cannot imagine if I was sitting around for 3 years, not sitting around, but if I was waiting for Homeland Security month after month after month to come through, I'd be bald from pulling my hair out. I just keep them in your prayers, not only from the standpoint of the financial support they need, but also just continually discerning day by day what Jesus has for them, how he wants them to be a part of what he's doing to reach new people where they are and in what they're doing. Let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about our internship program. We have a process in place by which we are seeking to identify emerging leaders in our midst, and then come alongside them and provide some training, some mentoring, and in some cases to actually place them in congregations to work under the mentorship of a senior pastor. They typically will work 20 hours, give or take, a week. Each one's a little different. Some are paid, some are volunteer. They usually work from a year to 18 months or 2 years in an internship. And these three wonderful young folks, Skylar, Hillary, and Jason, are actually they're kind of scattered around the country right now. But they're a part of the internship program. The next slide shows Carrie Smith, who's going to be working with you guys, right, in April. Is April still the target date? Mark and Ann Stapleton. And then there's Chris Sason, who is in the process of working through the application process as an intern up in Tip City, Ohio. We need new, young-ish leaders to come alongside. Did I get away with that? Young-ish. We need more of them, not only to fill some of the spots that are going to become more and more available as some of our pastors retire and other needs arise, but it's also our hope and prayer that some of these emerging leaders will also go forth and plant new churches. I just simply will conclude that just asking that you continue, please, to pray the Lord of the harvest for the workers that are needed to do what we believe Jesus wants us to do as we see what He has for us to do with Him, to reach all kinds of people in all kinds of places with new churches, but also through interns who become pastors through some of our established churches. Just ask the Lord to raise the people up, help us to discern who they are, how Jesus is working with them, how He has uniquely gifted and called them, and then how we can adapt the resources that He's given us to help them and nurture them and to grow more and more into the ministry that Jesus calls them into. This is living and sharing the gospel together. This is all of us participating together to start some new churches for all kinds of people in all kinds of places. And I just personally want to take a minute and thank all of you who have been praying for us as we've been trying to discern, okay, Lord, it does appear you want us to start some new churches. How do you want us to do it? We want to do this in an appropriate way. Church planting and new churches are a result of the discipleship process, making disciples, developing relationships with people, sharing the gospel with them in appropriate ways, and just being intentional about connecting them, being a part of connecting them to Jesus and helping them to grow as His disciples so that they can go and do likewise. And I just want to thank you, those of you who have been praying. We appreciate your support. Thank you very much, especially if you've had some training as an assessor or a coach, a mentoring pastor. Thank you so very much. God bless you all. Let's continue to live and share the gospel so that we can start more new churches for all kinds of people in all kinds of places.